I really feel a deep sense of unhappiness and purposelessness. 7 years are a long time. It offered comfort, but it also let me question if this is what I truly want for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
I feel stuck every morning when I wake up. I wasn't sure why I'm here. The unhappiness just deepened. I didn't have the energy to pull myself back out. And I didn't know what I even wanted for myself.
The world is obsessed with fast-track success. It's easy to think that people become successful overnight. But let's face it, more often than not, what we see on social media is total BS. I'm here to look past the perception of perfect success and focus on life's detours, perceived mistakes, and even wrong choices, and understand the real road traveled up the career ladder. After all, we're all effing up. As an immigrant woman who spent 15 plus years in engineering leadership roles in the tech industry, Wen Hsu knows intimately the challenge the immigrant women experience. Wen lost herself in the quest of climbing the corporate ladder, felt the need to show up in a certain way to gain the recognition she deserved, exhausted from the constant need to prove herself. As she continued advancing her career, she felt a part of her being rejected and unfulfilled. That's why she turned inward to rediscover her authentic self, challenge the norms, and craft her own career path. Wen is now the best-selling author of inspiring women professionals who boss up and is founder of Wen Coaching. Now, as a career and leadership coach, Wen is on a mission to empower other immigrant women leaders to be more confident, influential, and strategic in shattering the career ceiling as they let go of the cultural conditioning. As a result, these women get better titles, higher pay, and most importantly, a more fulfilling life. Wen, hello. I'm so excited to have you here and to dive into your story.
Hey, Diane, so happy to be here. I share with my friend, I'm gonna be on a big ass podcast tomorrow. But I'm like so excited to have this conversation with you.
Oh, you're too kind. Thank you. Before we get started in exploring your background, why don't you talk to me about Wen Coaching and what you're up to today?
I've spent over 2 decades working in the tech industry in the US and later years in engineering leadership role. 2 years ago, I made a significant career pivot to become a full-time career and leadership coach. Throughout my career, I found the most fulfilling feeling is in empowering others and really help them get to where they want to be, especially for those who don't always see themselves represented in the leadership role. And although my clients come from all walks of life, I primarily help first and second generation immigrant women leaders and think it is a unique challenge to navigate the cultural landscape, both professionally and personally.
Yeah.
When you are an immigrant or the child of an immigrant, there are just more barriers from the cultural conditionings that people face, and they often get stuck in the process. And I was there, so I will share some of that. To a point, I needed to blow up my career a few times. I had to really get myself unstuck. And that's why I'm here. I want to help people to know that anyone, if they're willing, they can live the career and life that they previously probably didn't dare to dream.
Let's dive into your journey. Let's go back to your youth when you're a budding teenager, thinking about your future. Set the stage too about where you grew up and that landscape.
I was born in Taiwan, grew up there, and I came to the US after I graduated university. When I was a teenager, I had pretty bad grades. And in Taiwan, grades were often associated with what kind of ultimate success you will have. So I'll be honest, when I was a teenager, I didn't really have a clear vision for what my future would be other than getting into a good university. And after that, I really have no idea. I wasn't told or asked about it at all. So I grew up with a lot of shoulds that I inherited from my parents, from the school, the education system. Shoulds I only should focus on grades, nothing else. We could at school even cancel other art or sport classes so we can study more. That's seen as a norm. Or another one, I should respect authority. We take the answers that we were given without questioning it. Or the other one, I should be a lawyer or doctor. You might hear from many Asians, that's like the de facto great careers to have.
Yeah.
This cultural norms and expectations really had me didn't leave much room for personal exploration. At teenager, I have a lot of anger. I didn't know why life needs to be this way. And all I did was study and study, and I didn't have a good grades. Ultimately, I was like very not confident, didn't know where my future would hold.
How did you end up at the university in which you studied?
That was such a coincidence. I knew I could get into some schools based on the simulation exam for the score that I have. And I actually got admitted into a school. When I got the result, I didn't even know what that school is or where it was located because of an oversight. So how it worked before in Taiwan was that we basically took one big exam, happened once a year. And based on our score, we get to fill out like a card of all the schools and the majors we want to get in. And I basically fill out the wrong one. I thought I was filling out for another school I really want to go. And I pretty much screw up. So when I got the result, I was like, where is it? Out. Yeah. So I actually got admitted into the school and I was overqualified. So originally I asked my dad, hey, can I just took another year, right, to take the exam again so I can get into the better school. Remember, like school means everything for your future.
Yeah.
So, but my dad didn't support that idea. So there I was, I took a train for the first time in my life with 2 suitcases, heading to somewhere I'd never been alone. And it was such a pivotal moment for me as well, because I'd never been away from home. I'm always under the care, the condition, and probably constraints of family and school. And it was the first time I really taste the freedom. And it was the beginning of my independence because all these like shoulds, right? No longer like around me ish. So for the first time in my life, because I was overqualified to begin with, I actually earned a scholarship throughout almost the entire program. So it's funny how my confidence actually rose because of that. And I feel empowered to explore what I truly wanted. And one example was I founded the university's first LGBT plus group. And because being gay wasn't very safe back then, so we posted flyers in women's restrooms. Then people would mail, right, physical mails to us, and we have that group for years, even now.
Oh, this is exactly the point of this podcast. You made a mistake, right, in your exam application where you checked the wrong box. And I'm sure when you got the result back and you saw that it was the wrong university and you said to your dad, okay, can I take another year? This is the wrong thing. I'm sure you had all the feelings about that. I don't want to classify what those feelings were and how it felt, but it worked out. And this is the point. Those moments where you feel, or those experiences where you feel that it's so final, it's going to mess up your whole life. You just lit a match.
Yeah.
In fact, this is the thing that needed to happen to kick you off in a direction to where you could start to feel like your authentic self.
Yeah. I love that word, authentic self. My university time was really the time I started to embrace really like everything that's all about me, really learning what it even means to me.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that process is liberating.
Were there struggles in university that you experienced? When you talk about how it was great because it built your confidence, but was there another side to that experience?
Mm, I feel like the other side of struggle will probably more around gender. And it will also go way back. Like my family, or I should say my parents wanted to have boys. And we are three girls. And I feel like because of that, when I grew up, I always want to be like as good, if not better than most boys. And I feel like that kind of drive me to do the things that most like boy would do, things like that. And it become more clear when I got into university because I studied computer science. So there are only 4 or 5 women in my class, where I think only one woman stay in the testing country doing what we learned in college. So I feel like back then when I was in university, very aware of how woman was a minority in class and how that impact how I feel like I show up. Because I knew like some women would be like leaning on like leveraging their woman power in a way to get help. And I almost feel like sometimes that might be easier. But there are also times I was like, no, but I really wanted to exceed without help from others. So I do feel like I struggle a little bit from like gender perspective.
At what point did you come to the US?
When I was close to graduation, the idea of studying abroad had been like circulating among some of my good friends. I didn't give it much thought, but a significant life event pushed me to reconsider. And it's funny, my girlfriend at the time moved to Seattle for language school. And shortly after that, we broke up. And she was 8 years older than me. So the painful experience basically created a desire in me. I thought that it was because I wasn't mature enough. I didn't have the wider perspective that she acquired. That's why we broke up. So I was in this drive to really grow myself fast. I want to see what she sees and really expand my horizon. So I saw that study abroad was actually a perfect opportunity to do just that. So I basically embarked on a year-long preparation to apply for graduate school in the US.
How did you choose where you were going to go? How did you get your information, etc.?
Such a great question. I chose to first came to San Diego because one girl I met online and we talked once before I flew. But because I'm like, I only knew this Taiwanese girl in San Diego, it feels better than knowing no one.
Was the context a friendship or more of a romantic relationship with that
It
person?
was friendship. We didn't really know each other that well. So it's more like a friendship over, oh, we're both Taiwanese.
Yeah. A mutual connection.
Yeah, but we're now like families. The cultural shock was immediate. I couldn't really read menus on what to order. I have good English in a way, right? Conversational things like that. But like reading menus, knowing what to order, things like that, that to me almost like it's another level and it's more cultural than the how good your English is. And I needed to learn all that. I stay with host families who were like virtually strangers, and I had to learn to adapt really quickly to the new norms. like the shower that I can take is 5 minutes. Before, the host family was like, oh, water is expensive, things like that, or have to eat food that I never seen before. I first stayed with a Mexican family, and I was so new to that cuisine. I was like, what's the greenish thing on that plate? But I couldn't even ask. Even if I asked the answer, I still didn't know what that was, right? So I just eat it. And of course, throughout the year, I learned to appreciate a lot of those like new experience. But back then, it was shocked to my system.
That's really intimidating.
Yeah.
How long did you stay in San Diego? Because your education was based in San Francisco.
I knew the whole time when I came to the US, I wanted to be in the Bay Area, and in my head, probably Castro, because I know that's where gay people can openly hold hands. And that's where I was, wow, that's so wild. I want that. I always knew I want to be in the Bay Area, and also because of my tech background. So San Diego was a great starting point, right?
Yeah.
Knowing one friend there and start getting myself situated into the cultural stuff and really learn to navigate my day to day, right? I applied to multiple schools and I got admitted to San Francisco State University. And that experience also added another layer of cultural shock. I probably talked about it a little bit before. I was actually a very curious kid when I grew up, and my mom had problem like shutting me down. And as I got older and into the education system, I started to learn there was a single right answer, right? Everything was provided and I don't question it. In such a system, I learned to stay quiet, not have much of opinions, and sometimes that would even be seen as respectful, right? However, in the US classroom, this approach was not only ineffective, but also dangerous. I learned that class participation, not only like asking questions, but answer questions and also presentations. Those were like vital components to basically graduate. So I need to push myself to do that. And while I observe my American classmates really expressing their thoughts and opinions, initially I had problem even came up with a single point of view. So I need to like go back and learn, okay, what was it about me that I have thought of, right? Like the critical thinking skill, forming my own opinions, and really gaining the confidence to share them openly. So it is a journey. It's a hard journey, I feel. Yeah, but in the end, of course, I learned how to do it and I graduated, and luckily the economy was great. So I actually secured a job with a company who is willing to sponsor me.
You landed at Eline and you started as a Java developer. And how was that experience? So you talked about the cultural experience in the classroom, but I'm sure that didn't cover everything and that the workplace brought its own dynamic. So how was it navigating the workplace?
Yeah, it was so mind-blowing in a way. I think that the biggest thing are two. One is I learned to voice my opinions, but I didn't learn to ask for what I want or ask for help. Yeah, I still feel like, especially as Asian, so we were seen as the model minority. We always have good grades. We keep our heads down. We do things like really well, but it's always a problem. I feel like for us to get to certain position, like in career. So my first ever job, I still remember vividly, like when there are like tasks to be assigned and people are like, oh, I want to do this, I want to do that. And I just have no idea what that was, or I didn't even need to raise my hand and say, hey, I'm interested in working on these. I was so used to, hey, here's what you need to do and go do it. So at my first job, it was such a small company, maybe like 5 engineers. So the work was like divided up that way. And it's not really by experience, but people, oh, I want to do this, I want to do that. As a junior engineer, my initial approach was to really observe and try to figure things out on my own. And I didn't want to be seen as weak. There were actually times I actually took days off just to work from home so I can catch up on the progress that I say I will make. So I don't want to be perceived as slow or underperforming in the office. And obviously that's not sustainable, right? So I learned to talk to people and ask, hey, what they're thinking, ask for help. Initially, I internalized those setbacks as a reflection of my own inadequacy. But when I talked to my US colleagues, it really opened my eyes. There was like many open discussions where they're like, no, this is not you. This is actually organizational issues, or the spec was just not clear, things like that. And I was like, oh my God, it's not about me at all. That I learned to ask more questions, asking for help. And then the other thing I observed there was also, even when things didn't go well for those US colleagues, it doesn't impact how they see themselves at all. Like it has nothing to do with their own self-worth. And that to me was, in a way, maybe even enlightened. I'm like, what do you mean? Work performance is irrelevant.
Yeah.
To how confident you are, right?
Your mind must have been exploding.
Exactly. So I learned that from my first job, and it was great to being able to see things from different perspectives.
And it looks about almost 3.5 years in at Eline, you received a title bump to senior application developer. So clearly you had learned the way. Talk to me about that journey.
I guess I should say that first, in my earlier part of my career, knowing what I want is easier, right? Basically climbing the rank. But I feel like later part in my life, knowing what I want was actually more difficult. But in my early career, I know, okay, I just want to advance, right, in the rank. So the most difficult part actually was for me to talk to my boss and then my CTO at the time, saying like, hey, how can I get to a senior role? What do I need to do to get there? And that was really the first time I feel like I advocate for myself and even make my intention clear that I want a promotion. And I think that to me made the biggest shift like in my career growth.
So how many years into that first 3 years, 4 months as a developer did it take you to start asking about the career progression and then making a statement of, I'd like to X?
That's really an interesting part, because for immigrants who have gone through similar experience, like we first look for companies who are willing to sponsor us. And then it's almost like we owe our right?
Yeah.
And I actually started to speak about promotion after I got my like green card processed and in good progress, that I finally feel like I'm in a good position to really think what's next for me. And then I can ask for more, things like that. And also because there are already a few years of work there that I can pull from. So it's also a bit easier for me to speak up.
There's so many layers that you had to deal with.
Yeah.
Ooh. I want to touch base, if you don't mind and you feel comfortable, about what it's like to think about your personal life and being gay. Are you expressing that in the workplace? Are you able to socialize in a way that you feel comfortable?
Great question. Up until my time at Eli, I wasn't out, but I did talk about that with some of my closer colleagues. I didn't feel the need to say it back then. But then once I joined my next job after Eli was Switchfly. And once I joined Switchfly, I met another lesbian who just naturally say, oh, me and my girlfriend. I was like, wow, you can just know that without even bring any weight to it.
Yeah.
So I learned that. So after I met that girl and I started to basically just talk about it casually, almost test the water because I didn't know like how safe it would be. But then I learned, okay, everyone, at least in the Bay Area, all the company that I was in afterwards, they're like, of course.
Yeah.
It's almost like before I will convince myself, other people need to like earn my trust.
Yeah.
To such that I'll feel safe to talk to them. But once I switched to, okay, if we touch on who are you going to bring to the Christmas party, conversation like that, and I would just bring it up, and then people didn't even like frown or whatever. I'm like, okay, so I can see my relationships just as normal.
Yeah.
And that really opened me up.
What made you decide to leave Eli?
I have been working at Eli, I think at that time, three and a half years, and finally got my green card. Because it was such a small company, like I said, it's 5 people-ish, and it was really locked down into this one language. Not only Java, but ATG is like very specific way of use it. Yeah, you can imagine, I don't know, like Salesforce, right? They have their own way of using their own technology. So I feel like I was like locked down into a small company and very small subset of technology. And when I feel like I was still in my early part of my career, and I really wanted to see how other companies operated and what kind of opportunities they can really offer. So I can like expand my technical skills. So then I started to like interviews with other company and landed at Switchfly.
Why was Switchfly so attractive?
This is the one thing if I can change, I really want to change how the tech industry interview. When I started interview, I don't know if you heard about how like engineers interviewed. Basically, we need to do tons of like coding exercise.
Oh yeah.
Live in front of people.
I worked in HR
Okay,
for tech companies. So you're talking about the person who facilitated
yeah.
the interview process, good, bad, or indifferent.
Yeah, exactly. So it's very unnatural. Like even I know even for a senior engineer who have, I don't know, 10 plus years of experience and coding every day, it would take them some time, probably 2 months, to really get good coding and speak about coding
Right.
in front of people and really do a good job. And I went through that process and I almost feel like my interviewing experience had more been like, hey, show me what you got. And I have to prove myself versus when I interview with Switchfly, I feel like the sense of, oh, we're in this together, right? They even leave the room to say, hey, just solve the problem just like how you would solve it regularly. So I can Google to look for answers. And then if I get stuck, they will really say, hey, can you help me out with it? How can we both solve it together? What were the things that would help with pushing my thinking along, things like that. So I feel very different kind of culture since the interview time. And back then I knew if they make me an offer, I would join. I really, really enjoyed the early years of Switchfly culture. That was like probably hands down the most and happiest experience that I have in my career and where I also grew the most.
You were there for almost 7 years and at least 3 titles listed on your LinkedIn.
Yeah.
Which I'm very curious about that journey, being in tech, as I've mentioned, and observing engineers, particularly women engineers. You made it to engineering manager there.
Yeah.
And it's rare to have women rise to the ranks of leadership within engineering for a number of reasons, right? It starts with the pool and then expands from there in terms of difficulties to get women to leadership. You did it, which is amazing. I'm sure it wasn't all rainbows and sunshine along the way, regardless of Switchfly being an amazing place with an amazing culture. What were the challenges you experienced as you navigated growing your career?
The biggest challenge was still not being able to see myself playing that role. I'm a self-identified introvert. That's actually why I choose to study computer science, because I thought, oh, there I can only talk to computer. I don't. So that's actually how I got into computer science. And the more I learn, the more I see things that I wanted to fix. At the same time, I still I still question myself. Like, I didn't think that the managerial is possible for me because I'm so introverted. I'm not charismatic. I don't speak like other leaders. So in a way, I feel like I also limited myself on where I could go. It actually took my manager at the time, who was even more introverted than I am. And he was probably one of the best manager that I have. And he actually pushed me and challenged me and say, hey, Wen, you are already doing so many of the things that people in that position or do you want to try it? Originally, I was like, what do you even mean? No. But looking at him and looking at how he brought impact the work, I was like, oh, maybe I can try it. I think luckily because at Switchfly, there was a middle ground, like a lead position. So I can actually try it out. And if I don't like it, I can still fall back to the
Individual contributor.
Yeah, exactly. So I was like, okay, let me try it. And it's once I knew what I could do. And I was like, okay, there's no turning back. So that's, I would say one of the biggest blocker in that sense was actually my own limitation on how high I can go or what's good or not good for me. And I was lucky to be challenged that way.
Were some of the challenges you found once you started formally leading people?
The lowest point was the first layoff that I experienced. Switchfly. Yeah, I wasn't impacted, but the survivors' guilt were real. And I think as a manager, how you then reoriented the team to keep going while maybe you yourself had doubt also. I find that's the most challenging part. And I think that the biggest learning there that I learned was like really say what's true or just don't say it. Because at that time, we actually have the leadership team say, hey, no one will be impacted. And then 2 weeks later, like people got let go. I knew there must be reason that I didn't know. But the fact that you said it won't happen and then it happened, I feel like that in itself, it actually hurt probably more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What about the day-to-day coaching and rearing of employees? Was that a learning curve for you?
It was to find my own managerial style. Before I got promoted as a manager, I was given feedback by another female manager saying, hey, you need to be more assertive. I think especially as an Asian woman leader, like the line that people have from perceiving you as direct, know what you're saying, speak up for yourself, and you're too much, you're like bitchy, things like that. The line is like very, very thin. So I feel like initially, based on the feedback I got, I did try to speak up more, fight for more, and speak in a more affirmative, things like that. And it's funny, I think sadly, it kind of worked, right? People start to perceive you differently, things like that. So I got promoted again. Of course, there are many other things I did well at that time, but I also feel as I continue to be promoted, I really feel losing like a part of me in a way, like how do I really want to show up for my people, right? What's authentic to me, right? Going back to the authenticity um like question again, like I didn't feel like 100% me, and I didn't want to basically keep doing that way. So it took me some time to really find a good balance on when I think I want to go all out, right? And fighting for things I believe, and when to take it back a little bit and just see. And it's okay to not have opinions at all times, things like that.
What drew you to move on from Switchfly to Patreon?
I didn't really leave Switchfly for Patreon. I left Switchfly because of personal reason, like my father had passed away. And despite having built a great reputation and really enjoyed the security that I have at Switchfly, in the later years of Switchfly, I really feel a deep sense of unhappiness and purposelessness. And 7 years are a long time. It offered comfort, but it also let me question if this is what I truly want for the rest of my life. I feel stuck. Like every morning when I wake up, I wasn't sure why I'm here. And because of my dad's passing originally, I was like really numbing myself with work. And the unhappiness just deepened. I didn't have the energy to pull myself back out. And I didn't know what I even wanted for myself. What's next for me? I feel really stuck. And that was the time, my first experience actually with coaching. I found myself a coach. And that gave me the time and space to go into myself, to understand myself better. And in the end, I up to actually quitting my job at Switchfly without another one line up because my souls were hurting. And I needed to do this for myself. So I quit a job. I took a gap year. I spent some time like traveling solo, and also went back to Taiwan for a few months with my family. So it's a period of healing and self-discovery that I really needed for myself. In later part of that gap year, I took some time to explore what other career paths could be for me. If not engineering leader, what would it be? I have no idea. I tried a few different things, including, like I love taking photos. I love to write. Oh, maybe I will be a professional travel blogger. So I actually talked to people who've done similar transition. I did a dry run, pretended I was a blogger for a week just to see what it takes, right, for me. And then in the end, it was not. So I go through a few different careers this way, trying to find what is it for me. And coaching actually came up because of my own personal experience and the transformation that I have with it. I learned that this might be something here because I always want to help people, but as a manager, coaching to me is speak to this person's soul. I'm like, I want to do that. I really want to help people that way. And Similarly, I did information interview with other coaches who done similar transition, and they're like, it will take time and it will be better if you have a job on the side. And that's what I did. I then put coaching on pause. I went back to the job market, and that's when I found Patreon. And when we look for a new job, there are always boxes that we want to check, like fast growing startups. That's what I was looking for. And then mission driven company. Found Patreon. I was like actually pretty happy. Like when I got the offer, I actually just canceled all my other interviews. I'm like, okay, great. This is for me.
Were you then working there and starting to build the coaching business on the side?
Yeah. Once I was onboarded into Patreon and feel like I had a handle of things, maybe like after 3 months, I signed up for like almost a year-long coaching program to start to get training, certification, and then I started coaching on the side of a full-time job. And I did that for almost 3 years.
Wow.
Mhm.
Learning curves did you experience in your work in Patreon?
The biggest learning curve was, this is probably the most unstable backpack company I ever been with, because it is a real startup and it's fast growing. So I have 5 skip levels changes in my
Oh, wow.
3-year tenures there. And
Oh,
imagine,
wow.
so that's already at a VP or CTO level. So every big changes, that's change of culture, change of direction, etc., etc. To me, that was the biggest learning. Like, how do I navigate the political situations and still being able to find alignment for myself and for my team, right? To keep this wheel running. So that's yeah, and I think that the amount of like change management and being able to shift and deliver quickly, that wasn't what I experienced before.
Mm. You were there through the height of COVID.
Mhm.
What was that experience like?
It was terrified. That's what I think for most company, it probably would be like, we didn't know what we were facing right at the time. I think the interesting thing is because Patreon is a membership website for creators, at least when it first started. When pandemic happened, the world shut down and we actually didn't know what the future would be for us. So actually not long after that, we had the first round of layoff just because of the uncertain future. But to our surprises, many of the patrons actually turned to website like Patreon to continue to support their favorite creators.
Yeah.
And our revenue actually shoot up like that. And during pandemic, Patreon was at its highest valuation. And a wild experience to try to see at this situation, what kind of features or things that we can do to continue to help creators. And in a way, I almost feel like seeing the generous side of humanity, really wanting to help people who are passionate, like continuing to succeed. Yeah.
What drew you to make the leap to leave the stable full-time role for your own self-sustaining business? What tipped that scale for you?
To be honest, I did not leave Patreon voluntarily. I was laid off. I knew at that time I love coaching. I want to do it more, but I was so comfortable with the cushy salary. And like I said, Patreon was at its highest valuation. I was like, oh, if I stay here for a few more years, then I can reach financial freedom. I don't ever need to worry about if I can make enough money from coaching. So that was my thought. So even at the later stage, like I wasn't happy, the culture changed, etc. I was still coping in a way in terms of finding purpose, right? Still in what I do at Patreon. And then I was let go with 30% of my team. So it was a mass layoff. I feel like in hindsight, Patreon was still young, and the leadership team was still figuring out, like, we're in the next stage. What do we need now? And actually, that means directions change, leaderships change, things like that. And every time when that changes, there is this almost like restructure, right? Along with the power and the product direction. I think that was the main reason.
What were your feelings around getting laid off?
Oh, I was mortified. I mentioned earlier, like being an Asian woman, I lean so much of my self-worth, right, on the contribution and the approval almost, right, from things that are outside of me, and career being probably the biggest driver for me, right, to establish myself. And the experience of being laid off, it's almost like a slap on my face. It's someone saying to me, like, you're not good enough for me. And so I took it really personally. And I feel like there it is. That's the proof. I'm not enough. And I actually took 3 months off to really just lick my wood and to process a lot of my emotions. So definitely victimize myself. A lot of anger was there. I was about to be promoted and nothing happened. I got laid off. It was hard, I have to say. And I couldn't sleep almost the first week when I was laid off. Keep thinking, like, when there was no clear reason that was given other than, like I said earlier, like the change of company direction, things like that. So my mind just trying to make sense of it. And there are a lot of, oh, what if I didn't do that? What if I make a different choice? That would the outcome be different? So it took me some time to really process and in the end, I feel like what really made the shift for me, and that was like 6 months later, was the understanding of, oh my God, I literally give the power to the person who laid me off, such that they, like, this person entirely, like, impact how I see my self-worth. And that's ridiculous. He probably doesn't even remember me. And just seeing how insanely that thought was, it really wake me up. I'm like, what am I doing here? Yeah. And that was, 6 months later, I realized that, and I just say no more. Like, I didn't want that to define me.
Not to mention, it's a layoff. So it wasn't like you were singled out. It was a group.
Yeah.
I can completely understand the shame of you were one of those people, but it could have been you just got fired in some random sense, and you almost took it that personally, that it was just you alone.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, looking back the experience, I feel like in tech, there are so many ego-driven people, but there are also many really good leaders. And my learning is, if I were to go back, which I hope that I don't, I really want to be the leader who can create different culture even in difficult environment. Because I feel like there's always something that you gotta do. Like this year, right? There are so many layoffs that happened due to overhired, things like that. And the company needs to exist, right, for its own purpose. And layoff doesn't mean that they're bad. So I can see that much more clearly now. But at the same time, I also feel like how the layoff was instrumented. There's a lot.
Oh, that's 98% of what you felt was in the execution. Like you can,
exactly.
obviously with hindsight, as you said, it makes it easier to look back, but you can understand that a business has to exist and make really tough decisions.
Right.
And if they had been upfront with that,
Yeah.
if they had said, this is horrible, it's not something we want to do, but we have to do it. And so we're going to execute in a way in which you can feel like we cared and thought about you as an individual.
Yeah.
And that we're not heartless. That makes a world of difference. And having conversations, articulating the why. There are just so many ways a company could do that. But frankly, companies get complicit, whatever word you want to use, and they think this is the only way. There's too many people. We can't do it any other way that would be effective. And that's not true.
Yeah. I think well said. The word respectful is what came out for me, right? Like I can understand that layoff needs to happen due to different circumstances, but how to do it in a way that's respectful, I feel like it would make a big difference.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Wen Coaching, you talked at the top a bit about that. I'm curious the complications you've encountered as you're heading the ship and continuing to go forward. What has risen to the surface for you in terms of challenges?
Although leaving Patreon was not my choice, after the initial shock and a few months to leave my wood, especially with my family, and that was already after my dad was passed away and lived through the entire pandemic experience. I thought really hard about what is it that I really want. And when I think about why I continue to stay at Patreon was to be financial free, right? And then I dig deeper into, okay, so if I get there, what do I want to do? And the first thing to me is I want to be able to coach more, because at that time I was coaching like on the side, meaning after work and weekend. So that's not really sustainable, although it's very fulfilling. And the second thing is I want to be with my family more. By then, I've already lived home for like now almost 20 years. And I feel for many immigrants, people might understand there's always this sense of guilt that I'm having a great life here in the US, making really good money while parents are aging, things like that. And I lost my mom, I lost my dad. I only have 2 sisters and aunt and uncle left. I want to spend more time with them. And when I work for other company, like 2-3 weeks max, that's all I can do, but that's not nearly enough for me. So when I got the clarity of, okay, even if I'm like, have money pile up at my door, that's what I really want to do. I want to coach more and I want to be with my family more. And then I was like, wait a minute, does that mean if I start coaching full time now, I can have that? And when I have that realization, then it almost feel like no brainer to me. It's funny, originally I was like, okay, maybe I'll give myself 2 years. And I just actually reached my 2-year anniversary a few days ago. Thank you. But initially it was so hard. And the hardest part I feel is, like I said, the sense of worthiness that I used to lean on before no longer exists, right? As an engineering leader, people chase me,
Yeah.
right? Asking if I am interested. And as a coach, I need to really put myself out there and hoping for whatever I have to offer, people respond. And to me, as an introvert, and as an immigrant woman, and as someone who still, dealing with my own self-worth issue, it was like freaking difficult to even just wake up every day and think, okay, who I can connect to today, who I can help today. There's so many internal shit that I need to deal with myself before I can really show up the way that I want to. And not to mention my income from like cushy tech salary to drop to like less than 6 digits. And I was like, oh my God, I was back at square one. The first year was a lot of navigating that kind of emotions. So my days, my highs and lows pretty much associate with when I sign a client, when I get paid, and also learning throughout the process, like how to do that. Because initially I want to coach and I know I'm a good coach, but running a business is completely different. But if I want to be a successful coach, I need to learn to love that. And also I need to learn what's my way of doing that, how I want to show up. That's really me. And the turning point I feel for me was really to accept that I gotta do it. I'm the only one who can save myself.
Yeah.
And from there, we start acceptance. I'm like, okay, it's gonna be a long process. And in a way, that's a good thing, such that like I get to know myself better. I learn how to speak myself out in a way that's me and I will be proud of.
I love your vulnerability. I
Okay.
appreciate it and acknowledge it. And I think that your coachees will benefit. I have to think they have, and the ones to come will benefit from that as well, because that's something you've had to learn
Yeah.
over time that is a
Mhm.
benefit and it's not a hindrance.
Yeah.
Were there times when you felt you gave more of yourself to your work than to your personal side? And would you change it?
That brought me directly back to the experience with my dad, right? 20 years away from home, only spent like 2 weeks with him. And I almost feel like justifiable because my dad was also the one who told me, hey, don't worry about anything at home. Things are good. And you just focus on your career, right? That's what parents do.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I did just that. So when I was at Switch Flight, my dad got diagnosed with cancer. Before that, I only focused on my career. But at that moment, because she was going through a big surgery and I wanted to be back home with him. So I actually took 3 months, 1 month off and then 3 months working from Taiwan to be with him. And that worked out great. That was the choice I'm happy until this day that I made.
Yeah.
And then he got better. He actually visited US.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and I knew he came here for me because I told him I want to show him what he made possible. And I have all this because of him. He came, that was probably like the highest point in my life. And then after he got back, he got really sick again. And he didn't even tell me until he got like really serious and lying on the hospital bed. And I choose to go back again, but this time it was a bit more challenging. One, because he wasn't able to remove much. Like the quality of his life was not good. So it is hard for like family to be around him. But I still went to hospital to be with him every day. But at the same time, I didn't know how long it would be. I was an engineering manager at the time, and being a manager and being an IC, it's quite different, right? In terms of the type of work and interaction that's required. And I feel like I couldn't really do my job well as a manager while working remotely from Taiwan. And the company was going through big transitions also. And while I was waiting here, almost like for my dad to pass in a way, it was difficult not knowing when would be the end. I probably waited for a month and I was like, I couldn't do this. This is not the kind of quality time that I want to spend with my dad. So I came back to the Bay Area, and after a month, he passed. So I already left at that time, knowing that I probably wouldn't be able to see him for the last time. But still, I would give fortune to be able to be with him even for 10 minutes. That experience deeply impacted how much I want to create that possibility for myself to be with my family more. And so now going coaching full-time, like one of my success criteria for my coaching business is to spend a minimum of 1 month every year with my family. That's
for you.
What came up most vividly for me, although I wouldn't say I regretted it, but I would like to have more time with him.
We're going to get into some rapid fire questions. How do you define success?
I define success as every day if I feel I love someone and I'm loved, and I'm successful.
When you were very young, what was your dream job?
I want to be an astronaut. Yeah. I was fantasized with everything that I can find and read about space.
What is your path not taken?
I wanted to be a teacher. Being a teacher in Taiwan have pretty high social status. And I thought I love teaching. And I was born on like a Teacher's Day.
What 3 words would you use to describe your career?
The first one came up is surprise. Second one is humanity. Third one is mission.
How has stress manifested for you this regularly?
I'm learning to be more in tune with my body. I usually don't really know I'm stressed until later that I'll be like almost like too tired, passing out.
Of the companies in which you've worked, which company would you say stands out the most to people who would look at your resume?
Probably Patreon was more known than my prior companies. And it was a startup experience. I feel recruiters like enjoy that more.
I'd like you to label 3 of your jobs: love, ultimate fun, or skip.
Love would be Wen Coaching, my own business. That one is easy. Ultimate fun, I switch flight because that's when we went crazy and I really feel like everyone there with like family, and I go like crazy there. Skip is probably Eli.
I think this is a wonderful story that is going to help so many. And I can't wait to be able to hit the publish button and let people enjoy.
Thank you, DM. I really feel like I've been small for the longest time in my life.
Mm.
And I don't want to be that. And in order for me to be seen more, I guess that's what I learned also. I have the fear of being seen, but on the flip side, it's also the desire to be truly seen. I just didn't know how to do it.
Yeah.
And how to open myself up like that. This is my story. And if it helps someone, great. If not, great, because I already learned how to speak myself out to the world.
Thank you for listening to today's episode of Effing Up. I'm your host, Deanne Reiner. If you enjoyed today's episode and you'd like to help support the podcast, please subscribe on the platform you use to listen to podcasts. Share Effing Up with others, post about it on social media, and/or leave a rating and review. Until next time, count your perceived failures as part of your path to success. After all, we're all effing up.